Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Version 1, a podcast where interesting people come to talk about their creative processes, imposter syndrome, inspiration, failures along the way, and much more. I'm your host, Waverly, and today we are at my friend's basement podcast studio in Brooklyn. You can listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts or head over to YouTube to watch the video version. And this week, my guest is Kearse IV. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you.
Can we start off with having you introduce yourself?
For sure. That was perfect pronunciation. Hello, everybody. I'm Kearse IV. I am a photographer and videographer from Marietta, Georgia, graduate of Morehouse College, class of 2018, and a transplant here in Brooklyn, living my best life.
Yes, and just to catch everybody up with how we know each other, we actually lived together for a year.
We sure did.
In the McKibben Lofts, the infamous lofts that I have mentioned on a previous episode, because that's where I met my partner, John, and I lived there for 2 years with 4 roommates, or I guess I was one of the 4, so with 3 roommates, and then 2 of the roommates moved out, John and I stayed, and then we brought you in.
Yes.
And you knew my partner, John, through work, because you both work at NBC. And so, yeah, I just remember you had just moved back from Atlanta because you were there during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And you were like, okay, I really want to get my photography going now that I'm in New York. And so it's been so inspirational to see how you've grown over the last, how long has it been? 2 years since we lived together?
2.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like your trajectory has just skyrocketed.
Thank you.
In the 2 years. And it's been really cool to see. So I'm so excited to jump into all of that with you. But to start off, I was wondering, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Ooh, that's a great question. To be honest, really honest, I never in my head was oh, I want to be like a doctor or be like a lawyer. I just had a vision for what I wanted my life to look like. And I credit my parents for that because they never forced me or my brother to be you're going to be this or you're going to be that. I think they did a great job of showing us how to be and trusting that in that we'd find the best thing for ourselves and the best pathway. That said, once I kind of figured out that creativity was going to definitely need to be a part of my ethos and what I wanted to do moving forward in life, I honed in on photography, videography, marketing. But I would say for the first major part of my life, in my head, I didn't have this set thing I wanted to be. I just wanted to be successful and I could kind of see the lifestyle that I wanted to live, and a lot of that just had to do with making sure my family was good and making sure that I could dictate my own time.
That's awesome. Excuse me. That's awesome. Now, you originally studied sports and kinesiology.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay.
I was a kinesiology major when I was at Morehouse. I studied movement of the body. Big sports kid growing up. My dad was a coach. We did bowling, football, baseball, rec basketball. We did a summer of lacrosse. Me and my brother, we're always in sports.
That's every sport. Oh my God.
Yeah. And so, that's what a big part of our upbringing was rooted in sports and movement and just being active. And so that being such a big part of my life, once I got to school, in high school, we had to do this. I was in a magnet program. So we had to pick a pathway for our internship and research. And I was at Kennesaw State studying sports medicine. And I thought that was the coolest thing. I'm whoa, the trainers are doing the warm-ups. They're traveling with the team. They're working with the athletes. And I thought that would be a potential pathway for me. So that's kind of when I knew that kinesiology or something in that realm was going to be what I wanted to study.
Mm-hmm. So when did you decide to not pursue kinesiology in your career and more so go toward media, photography, videography?
It was my freshman year of college. So my best friend, Brooklyn, he literally lived across the
shout out Brooklyn, because I know him because I interned with him too.
Shout out Brooklyn.
Very small world.
Definitely. Super small world. Shout out Brooklyn.
I actually met him before I met you.
Which is crazy. Which is really crazy. But he literally lived across the hall from me. And we just became cool freshman year. We both stayed in a dorm called LLC. Lots of friends and great times there. But he literally was telling me, he's yo, I have this idea for a production company. And I was okay. I was my mom has a camera at home. I know a little bit about photography. I could help you out a little bit. He's oh, that'd be cool. So my mom had this Canon Rebel. It was before there was the T5 and T3 and all that stuff. It was just Rebel. and it was like a compact flash. It was a fat old digital camera, but she had a couple lenses to go with it. And back when I was in high school, she'd let me like, shoot it at my brother's like sports games and stuff. So that's kind of how I learned the basics. And so I grabbed it from home, brought it back to campus, and like we just go around shooting all different events, just kind of capturing campus life, whether it was like Greek life or different orgs, or just really just kind of like people on Brown Street day in the life. And so we kind of, this was like before Instagram even had like long videos. So we started our own page, and it kind of blew up a little bit. People were like, oh, we really like your stuff. And like, this is kind of in the era when like a ton of people were starting to kind of get into just digital visual arts. And so we had a little bit of our own style and our own sauce to it. And a lot of people gravitated towards it. So what was kind of a, hey, I'm gonna help my friend out, turned into like a hobby, which turned into a passion. So I would really mark that moment or those moments of my friend just saying, hey, like, I want to do this. I say I can help you. And then together we just took off from there. And, Brooklyn, he went on to change majors to become a cinema, television, emerging media studies major. So he was all in that field and is now just an incredible director, DP, videographer, and photographer himself. I myself did not change majors. I finished my degree because I had so many credits at that time. But I made sure from that point to just like try my best to get real life experience.
Yeah. I was going to ask why you didn't switch majors if you realized you didn't want to pursue kinesiology and go more towards media. But yeah, you were just too far down that path.
Yeah. So it was tough. It was definitely a big conversation with my folks for sure, because they're like, wait, you want to do what? And long story short, that summer going into sophomore year, we both did an internship with Pink Me Perfect Brand Management. A lovely woman named Joycelyn, she brought us on. Miss Joycelyn Dawson, she was like, hey, like, we're going to be working with an artist named Mr. Tony Hightower. Tony is an amazing artist himself. He's a thespian. He's a singer. Singer, actor, songwriter. He's incredible. But he was making a transition from R&B to straight ahead jazz. And that summer we were helping him with his EPK, his branding, his content. And so that whole summer we basically just followed him around with our cameras and just helped him make content. And at the end of the summer, he was performing at Atlanta Jazz Fest. And we got a chance to like get behind the scenes, ride through the festival grounds. Like we were right on the stage. We were backstage. Like we were everywhere. And I had a moment where we were shooting in front of the stage. And Brooklyn goes like, yo, like, look back. I look back and you just see a sea of people. And like the energy is so crazy. And literally at the end of that day, that's when I had like the epiphany of like, somehow, some way, like this energy that I experienced today at this festival, like just kind of shooting, vibing, I want to incorporate this somehow in my career. So when I told my parents that after the festival, they were like, okay, all right. Like we see you have a passion for it. Like we'll support you, but you have a ton of credits. You're already kind of established in your major. We recommend that you just try to get internships and experience because you don't want to start over from zero credits. So I just took their advice and from there just started hustling. Like we worked at music studios, radio stations, in the streets everywhere, just anywhere where we could get experience and learn about the industry. We were there just trying to like soak up like a sponge.
That's incredible. And I feel like that takes a lot of courage and bravery to pursue something that you didn't end up getting a degree in because, and I think it's more common than not, right? Like there's some stat that like, I don't know the exact stat, but it's like over 50% of people don't end up working in the field that they majored in. But to know that so young is amazing. But also I feel like if I was 18 and 19 and I was like going down a particular path and realized it was a different one, I feel like I would be really like scared to kind of pursue what my degree wasn't in because I was so young. So like I have to like applaud you for that kind of like confidence in yourself that you had at such a young age. That's amazing.
I appreciate that. Definitely I would say like I'd attribute it to self-confidence for sure, but also just like I said, like the support from my parents, right? Like my family being like my rock and my support system, them just being full-fledged behind me, like, hey, if this is what you want to do, like we'll support it. That gave me the foundation and the confidence to be able to say, hey, I got my people behind me. Like I can't fail. Like they're gonna push me. They're gonna make sure that I'm good. And also like my parents are creative people too, right? Like as nerdy as my family is, I like to say like my mom is a computer scientist and like my dad is also like a nerd himself in many things, but my dad always had a video camera. My mom always had a camera. So when it comes to like nerdy tech stuff and like visuals and things like that, like they're into it too. So it wasn't like this like far left thing, but it definitely was still a big push for me to be like, hey, I'm changing up everything I wanted to do. So just thankful for their support, and that definitely played a big role in just helping grow the confidence to make that jump.
Yeah, for sure. At that time when you were starting out, who were the creators that inspired you or that you looked up to?
That's a great question. I would say have to shout out some of the early goats. I don't know if you've ever heard of Cam Kirk.
No, I haven't.
He's an Atlanta-based photographer. At this point, I think he's definitely more than a photographer. I consider him a mogul at this point. But he's got his own creative agency. He's done incredible photography work around the world, really working with like some of the biggest artists. And I would say that him, being from the Morehouse world and also just having a studio space in Atlanta, that being someone that, college age looking around the city, like, whoa, like who is that? And so you realize like those are the types of things you could do. And me being early in my creative journey, like I would say like definitely like someone like a Cam Kirk was like a new standard, right? I think just in terms of like at that time, I would say like Gunnar Stahl. I know that's I guess a generic pull at this point because he's so popular, but back then his style was so different. Like I think he was kind of shooting that like vintage filmic, kind of like small digital look, and he was just an ace at it. I think that he set the tone for a lot of like visual ethos of the time, and definitely like whether it was on Tumblr or Insta, it was all over the internet. And so there was like, I think a quality, an aesthetic, and also like a lore that came with his work that like was definitely like a driving force for like, yo, if I can make something that's like half that good, that'd be really great. So I think in terms of like real life inspo, I would look like at like a giant now, like a Cam Kirk. And I think like back then when I was first starting, like in terms of like internet, like inspo, like, yo, this is so cool, I would say like a Gunnar Stahl, like for sure.
Love it. Now, you have done so many different like events or types of photography, I should say. You've done events, you've done things with models, grad photos, concerts, sports, fashion. Like if you go on your website, you have done so many different types of photography, which is amazing. I was curious, do you have a particular favorite thing to shoot?
That's a great question. Yes. Yeah, I do. I love working with other artists. Specifically, I would say like off the top of my head, music comes to mind at first. I'm such a music lover. It's such a big part of my life. So I love working with musicians and instrumentalists. But beyond that, like any other type of artist, whether like they're a movement artist or a visual artist or makeup artist, whatever. If you do some form of art, I like to consider myself like a force multiplier. I love being in the room and getting another person's creative point of view and seeing how we can kind of blend and like multiply the idea together. So yeah, I think like there's a definitely like favorite style when it comes to like collaborative work with other artists, but most recently I've developed a new favorite, and it's my own original works and creating fine art photography really through like 120 millimeter film, which is what I'm heavy in right now. And telling stories and changing narratives and telling new narratives, which was the name of my art show that I had back in February. A little plug there. But yeah, I would say like general favorite will always be working with other artists, especially like music artists. But right now I would say like my favorite thing to shoot is like film photography, like telling like raw, unfiltered stories and new narratives and just kind of switching perspective on some things culturally for sure.
Yeah. Can we jump into New Narratives, your show? I was there. It was in February in Chelsea, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And it was your first solo exhibit, right?
Yes. First art show in general. That's the first time I've ever shown my work like printed out or to like anybody in like a formal setting.
It was so much fun. And for those who are listening and weren't there, the room, there was multiple rooms, were like packed to the brim. It was so cool to see your art covering every single wall. I had a blast. I got to meet your family.
Yeah, everybody was there.
A lot of your like friends and things like that. And it made me feel so like proud to know you. So yeah, it was amazing. Could you tell people who weren't there a little bit about the show and what people saw there?
For sure. Well, first, thank you for the kind words and thank you for coming. It meant a lot to have you in the space. You've literally seen me when I first got here to that show, and I felt like that show was definitely like a great like landmark of just growth and maturity as an artist and being able to have the confidence to like show what I've done. To give a little bit of a quick background on the show itself, the title was New Narratives. It took me a long time to come up with that. It just kind of was just like, what do I want to call this? But to give a quick backdrop of what you would have experienced the day of the show, this show was in Chelsea. Shout out to Northern Lights. They are a multi-layered production company that hosts artists in their gallery space in Chelsea. Mr. David Gioella, he's one of the founders of the company. He invited me into the space to have my showcase. And so we worked diligently on figuring out what exactly I was going to show, right? And it took me months to figure that out. But throughout the process, I figured out that in addition to some archive work showcasing my first stint in New York from 2018 to 2020, and then after the pandemic coming back from 22 to 24, I wanted to show the growth in my work from there, showcasing how I view different scenes, whether it's scenes from the streets, scenes from music, scenes from HBCU life, like the NY Classic, sports, things like that. But also too, like I mentioned, just like stepping into telling new stories. That's where New Narratives came from. The feature piece was called Shampoing Noir en Femme, or Black Shampoo for Women. It's a take on the 70s and 80s Black exploitation era. There's a film called Literally Black Shampoo, and there's a male hairdresser in the film, and he gets into some nefarious stunts and is, on the run in the film. And the motif, the signature motif of the cover is a man in a zoot suit with a hairdryer in one hand and a pistol in the other. And I saw that for a long time. I was just very inspired by it. I thought it was so dope. But I was like, what if we just like gender swap the cover? Wouldn't that be cool? And so that initial thought turned into, I think I had that thought like November 2023. I wrote it down, had people telling me this is really cool, but like, think about it more. Like, what exactly do you want to say? And like, how do you want it to be viewed? And so that turned into just hours and hours and hours of thought. And those 6 canvases that you saw when you first walked in, Lamia Marie, she's the model, insanely talented, at Peach Mia, if you want to follow her on socials. She was totally bought in with the idea. She has the most beautiful afro. She kind of looks just like Foxy Brown. So being inspired by that film and Sheba Baby and so many other films of that era, we got together and we did a character study, and we did this incredible shoot on film. And once I saw that and I saw, okay, this is what the first new narrative will be. Looking back at that 70s and 80s era and taking a film, and a lot of those films of the era, which had leading men in those roles, and swapping it and putting a little shine and center on Black women. And everyone loved it. Mia loved it. Everybody at the show loved it. I actually just recently posted the work digitally on social, but that was the main feature focal point and beginning of the show. So that was taking that old narrative from the 70s and 80s and making it new. And then looking ahead to the future, what I think the future is Black fatherhood and changing the narrative around that. So for a long time, you'd hear, Black dads are absent, or, Black fathers aren't good, or they're not there, or whatever, like those stereotypes. And I'm looking around and I'm like, for one, I wasn't raised that way. My family wasn't raised that way. And also two, the community around me wasn't raised that way. So I knew that narrative to be false, but I also saw, now that we're of this age now, a lot of my friends are dads, and they're great dads, whether they had a great example or not. They're all stepping up to the plate. They love their kids, and they're providing for their kids, and they're helping their kids grow. And it's just beautiful to see. So I'm like, you don't ever see that. If no one's going to show it, and that narrative that's old, tired, and dry about Black fathers being absent is still on the mainstream, I should be the one to say something about it. So I wanted to change that narrative. And so I borrowed from The Pursuit of Happiness. I didn't realize it was a book at first. And I saw the book cover and I was like, this would be an amazing kind of photo to recreate. And I also sourced a little bit from the film with Will Smith and Jaden. And I saw some of the frames and was inspired by that. So one of my close friends, his name is Tim Sanders. I invited him and his son Knox for a shoot. And I wanted to show Knox tying Tim's tie. And a lot of people at the show said, hey, this is like my favorite photo. And that meant so much because what I thought needed to be said and needed to be shown, I didn't expect a lot of people to resonate it, especially if you're not in the Black community. You may not know about that narrative, or it's just what you heard. But for you people to be able to see that, and they have no description, nothing, but it hit them and they're like, whoa, I love this. that meant so much to me as the artist, because I'm like, okay, cool. What I wanted to say is relevant. It's being heard. It's being well received. And also the fact that Tim and his son were there. Knox is like, he's little. He's like, I think about like be 2 or 3. So he's not going to remember, but like, that's such a cool moment that like he was there and everybody was like, hey, like that's him. And I'm like, yeah.
That happened to me. I was, because those photos were kind of in like a hallway, from, like one room leading to the
like in that
next.
corridor, yeah.
And I was standing there and these 2 people were taking a photo in front of your photo. And I just like, I didn't even like pay much attention. And I was like, wait, they kind of look like the people in the photo. Like I didn't like click. And I was like, oh my God, they're here.
They're there, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So that was looking into the future and debunking and changing that narrative and making it new. So we went back to the 70s and the 80s. We had a little fun there and made a new narrative. And then we looked to the future and made a new narrative there. So those were the main canvases that you saw in the show. The rest of those framed works that you saw kind of on that main wall and in the back room, which was the music room, those were all framed works from the archives. And I just wanted to show my range. I wanted to show my compositions, how my style, but also too, the main focal point was kind of stepping into this new era, I guess you could say, of myself, of creating fine art photography and telling stories and like wanting people to feel something when they see my work. And yeah, you know, when you post something on the internet, it's like, oh yeah, double tap, fire, fire, fire. It's like, okay, bro, but like, I want to know what you think. Like, do you love it? Do you hate it? Did it make you smile? Did it make you cry? Did it make you laugh? Do you like the composition? Do you like the color? Do you like the lighting? Like I'm at the point now where I'm ready to have those discussions and receive that feedback. And so being able to not only receive that at the show, but have the opportunity and the confidence to do it felt amazing. And also the fact that what was on my mind to tell in terms of the stories and the narratives were all really received very well, especially the one about Black fatherhood. So that was really one of the coolest parts about the show.
Yeah, that's so cool that you're able to have these discussions and commentary on stereotypes or, you know, things that have happened in history through your work. That's really cool. Are there other things that you want to comment on that you haven't been able to yet through your work?
Yes. And one of them is like literally just dumb fun. Like just having fun. Like I don't think everything needs to be so serious. I think there's a time and a place for sure. And there's some things that need to be said, but I also think that there should just be space for freedom and fun. There's a lot of like inspirations that I take from, whether it's anime or education, even sports, like so many different fun things that you may not associate with Black people, and seeing us in those frames and in those stories. But I would love to infuse some of those things and tell new stories and put us at the forefront and in those frames. And I think that I have like starting to get those visions where it's like, you just think of something and it's like, oh, I can bring that to life, or I would love to comment on that. And yeah, I think having fun is a big one. So I have there's 3 more pieces that I want to put into a series. So what you saw at the art show was the beginning and the end. It was supposed to be 5 pieces, really. You guys saw 2 and then archives. People don't know that, but I'm telling you that now. So the goal is before the end of the year, hopefully, to create the 3 additional pieces and then show it again in full. So one of the pieces is going to be horror inspired. Another one is just like kind of anime, fun, futuristic type of vibe, kind of like an Akira or like a Dirty Pair type of a vibe. And then what's the third one? I'm drawing a blank. Black shampoo, Carrie, Dirty Pair, Pursuit of Happiness. There's a 4th one. I'm tripping right now because I can't remember it.
That's okay. It gives people an incentive to follow up and look up your work.
Please.
It's a surprise.
It's a surprise. Yeah. So yeah, those definitely having fun and just coming up with some more fresh stories for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. How would you describe your style to somebody who has never seen your work before?
Ooh, you ask great questions, Waves. You know what? I would describe it the way my mom describes it, because that's something that I had been searching for the last couple of years, right? Like, I think that as an artist, you want that. Like, you want to like, oh, I want my own style. And like, I think a lot of time, like it was been spent with like, oh, well, like, you know, is it the type of camera you use? Is it the focal length you like? Is it your lighting choices? Is it your color choices? Is it your subject matter, right? Like all these different things I felt like were technical aspects of photography that could be layered into style. But I felt like I couldn't describe it myself, but I knew what I wanted my photos to look like. And I was happy with how my photos looked. And so as I kept kind of tweaking and developing it, a lot of things that you just kind of are learning, you start to go off of feeling. So you learn, and then it's like, okay, cool, rule of thirds, these different compositions, like, you know, Rembrandt lighting, like loop lighting, all these different styles, techniques, things like that, and skills you develop. Over time, it just becomes information and knowledge in your catalog, and you just kind of go off what you feel and what you see. Once I got to that point, I was like, okay, cool. Like I feel like I have a style and I'm moving with style, and my work it exudes style, but like how would I describe it in words? I really couldn't. My mom said one day, she was like, you know what? I know your style. I was like, Mom, what is it? She was like, I would say it's care for the subject.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I was like, okay, that's tough. I was like, all right, Mom. So I would say, yeah, care for the subject. And I think that really means care in full, right? And all the different aspects of caring, right? In terms of from the beginning, right? Hey, like, here's the idea. Are you comfortable with that? Is this something that you're interested in? You know, how do you feel about it, right? So from the beginning, just kind of establishing like connectivity, comfort, relatability, and also just like creative freedom between myself and whoever I'm working with. And then from there, I feel like everything kind of flows, and I might have a set kind of like design in my head for how I see the frame or the lighting and things like that. But it's really just making sure throughout the process that there's a lot of care for the subject to make sure that they're comfortable, confident, and that the vision that we're setting out to create is executed, but not at the expense of anyone's comfort at all. And making sure that when they see themselves in the final imagery, that it's reflecting back like how they see themselves. That's, I think, one of the highest compliments you can receive as an artist is, wow, like the art that you created, of me makes me feel seen, or makes me feel like me. That means I did my job, and that you're seeing yourself, or the subject sees themselves beautifully, confidently, authentically, safely. And so that to me is like one of the beautiful things about where I'm at now. It's one of the things that I strive for. And also too, I would say is how I would at this stage define my style.
That's awesome. That's so poetic.
Thank you.
Shout out to your mom.
Yes, definitely. Shout out to my mom for everything. Without her, I'm nothing. And she, like I said, she's the one who put the camera in my hand from the beginning. So I owe the majority of what I have to this day to my mom. She's my biggest fan. She is my biggest supporter, but also definitely like my biggest critic, but it's all love. Like if my mom doesn't like it, she'll straight up be like, I don't like that. Or like, why'd you do that? Or you edited it too much, right? Like, but I live for that feedback from her, because I know it's never from a malicious standpoint. It's always in what she sees. She keeps it real. She keeps it authentic with me. And that's allowed me the space and the confidence to keep growing and keep going.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier getting more into fine art photography.
Yes.
And I think that's really cool because it's a lot different from, let's say, street photography, where you're standing there like trying to find interesting angles, but the world's happening around you. Like fine art, you're in control of
Yes.
everything, right? Because you have a vision and you're making it come to life. And so could you talk to me a bit about what your creative process is when it comes to your own work in fine art photography? Like everything from getting the inspiration all the way to the final image. What is the process?
Great question. I'm still working on the process. I think I'm still very green and new to fine art photography. And I'm calling it that. Someone who's a fine art photographer may look at my work and be like, that's not fine art. And that's fine. But I think that I'm working towards it and developing it. So just my process currently, the majority of the time, I guess, just starting from inspiration, I guess at the base of the process or the foundation, it can come from a plethora of different places. I think like most recently, like with the work for the show, I literally, one of my old roommate, Chris Morris, one of my line brothers, shout out Simo. He had the poster for Black Shampoo, like the old like blaxploitation movie, and I saw that and I was like, that's super cool. Like it just looked like a vibe. I never saw the film, but I was like, that's just such a cool piece of art. And so I had it saved on my phone since like 2019, and I never did anything with it, but I just had like a folder that's just like creative inspo or like creative fire stuff. Like, and I'm just like, oh, this is fire. Like I'm gonna save it. I had no idea that I'd ever like want to make something about it or inspired by it, but I just saw it and thought it was cool. So like 4 years later, I saw it again and I'm just like, a what if? And I think that a lot of my inspiration comes from asking myself the question, what if? Why not? And if you don't have an answer, go for it. So I think that that's a big part of like the inspiration right now from that part of the process. It could be something that I saw on the subway, something I saw on the street. It could be an anime or a manga. It could be a novel. It could be another person's like photography or a film. Inspiration for me comes from everywhere, but a lot of it most recently comes from asking those questions of like, what if or why not?
I love that.
For sure.
And so once you have that inspiration and that idea, where do you go from there?
Right. So once I have that like inspiration or initial spark of an idea, from there I kind of write things down. Right. Like it could be scratch ideas like who do I envision to be the subject of this, right? Is it a person? Is it an object? Right? Is it still life? Is it going to be portraiture? Is it a place? Right? What colors do I see? Like, is it cool? Is it warm? What's the lighting going to be like? Is it dark and moody? Is it bright and vibrant? So I start kind of thinking of like the tone and the mood, things like that, but also like the subject that I have in mind for it. And just in my mind, starting to visualize what the frame would look like and how it could come to life.
Wonderful. Do you draw inspiration from any non-visual things or any sort of unconventional sources?
Yes, for sure. Music. I don't know why I didn't mention that, but music is a huge inspiration for me. I listen to music every day, all day, pretty much, right? Like when I wake up in the morning, I got, soundtrack to my life, as they say, right? I've always got that soundtrack going. So a lot of times I'm inspired by music, whether it's the beat or the lyric or any part of it. I would say, I think spiritual, always developing my relationship with God and just trying to listen and make sure that, I'm on the right path. And I think that a lot of times, like you might get a blessing that inspires you, right? Or someone may send a blessing, my way or your way that, that might be inspirational to me. So I think that that's a big thing. Yeah. Music, spirituality, trying to think unconventional. I think seeing how other people move, like I said, movement, right? Like people that, whether you're dancing or running or lifting, like I think just like seeing people move inspires me a lot. It really does. Like the old adage of like, you see somebody running and you're like, I should be doing that. I'm always impressed and just inspired by people that move their body, whether it's yoga or fitness or wellness or for sport or just for fun, recreation. All those type of things inspire me. So yeah, I think it comes from a lot of different spaces and it can be conventional or unconventional. But if I had to like define or name a few, I would say definitely like music, spirituality, and also just movement for sure.
That's awesome. What is your equipment and lens setup?
Ooh, all right. Now we're getting into the good stuff, the technical stuff. Currently I'm a Sony boy. My main body I shoot on is the Sony A7 III. The lens I keep on the camera the most, the 35mm f1.4 G Master. I think that's my favorite lens I've ever shot on. I really don't take it off unless I really need like studio 24-70. You need the range, you need the wide, you need the telephoto, or if you're doing something specialized, like you're shooting sports, you need the distance or something like that. But right now I'm keeping that 35-1.4 on there. That's my main digital setup. For film right now, if I'm shooting 35mm, I have a Nikon FG that I like to run. I also have two Canon Rebel X's if I want to shoot the Canon. And then for my big body, my medium format, I have a Zen Zabronica. So, the Zen Zabronica, I think it's the ETRS version, not the ETRSI. Yeah, I think it's just a regular ETRS, but that's that, and I think it has a equivalent 50mm on there. So those are my three main setups. 35mm, I'll use the Nikon FG, digital, Sony A7 III, and then for 120mm medium format, the Zen Zabronica.
Love it. So it sounds like you're more of a prime lens user than a zoom lens.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask you where you stand on that debate, because I feel like I'm always seeing on the photography Reddit, people are like debating heavily between those two types of lenses. And quickly, for people who are listening who may not know what that means, it basically means, can the lens zoom in and out, or does the lens stay at a fixed length?
Yes.
Essentially. So, and I don't even want to say it's controversial, but it's just a debate among photographers of like some people really feel strongly over using one type of lens or the other. So that's why I was curious what your feelings are on it.
For sure. My feelings are like, it's all situational, right? To me, it's like whatever's going to get the job done. I prefer lightweight, compact. So primes are always going to give you that versus a zoom. But at the same time too, the versatility of a zoom, especially a good one, cannot be understated. I think maybe second favorite lens in camera combination of all time, the 24 to 70 Canon L 2.8 L. That's one of the best like zoom lenses like ever. Like you can get butter shots like every distance on the focal length range. The 2.8 gives you nice bokeh. Of course, Canon, the L series has impeccable glass in there. It's incredibly like tack sharp and beautiful renderings. So yeah, it just depends. Right now, like I said, I'm preferring prime and keep my prime 35 on all the time. But there are instances, especially like I guess photo versus video. I prefer to shoot video on a zoom, photography usually on a prime. But I love both.
Gotcha. How do you think about your equipment factoring into what you're shooting and what you want the final product to look like? Like, how do you choose your equipment, I guess, is what I mean by that.
It's a good question. I think, again, like on the situation, I think for me, with the resources that I have now, I've been kind of like building up my collection, if you will, over the last couple of years. I still like want to grow it and have been thinking about honestly changing systems recently. But how I make the decision on what loadout, I guess, to go with is really where I'm going to be, how light I need to pack, and what the deliverable is. Right. So if I'm just going to an event, I usually try to keep it very light, like enough to carry in like a single bag. And also I want both hands. So I can't shoot the 24 to 70 with one hand. It's too heavy. The 35-1.4, I can shoot with one hand and I can have like off camera flash on my other hand. And I can like angle my speed light however I need to, like in the function or in the environment to shape the light how I need it. So I prefer to have that versatility. If I'm in the studio though, I'd rather have both hands on the camera because my lights are going to be on stands, things like that. So it depends on where you are, how much room you're going to have in the space you're shooting in. But yeah, that for me, it's all the situation. And usually for me, the main situations I find myself in are fast paced moving environments with a lot of moving subjects in like an event setting, or usually much, much slower pace, private in a studio, and you don't really need to worry about it. So it really just depends.
And what are your feelings on digital versus film?
Well, I've grown a love for film over the last couple of years. It's an expensive hobby, but I think honestly, film is incredible. The more you shoot it, the more you get addicted to it. I think. I don't know how many rewards points I have at Photodome. Shout out Photodome, but I go there multiple times a month just to drop off and pick up. So recently, I would say like I've fallen in love with film, especially like medium format and 120 and like the imagery you can get. But at the same time too, it's like there's amazing things you can do with digital cameras. And most of the time too, for me personally, I'm going to use a digital camera to check before I shoot on film too. I know it's some people say it's not traditional, but that's something that I do practice sometimes. So yeah, I mean, right now I have to say like film is like my thing right now. I'm really like loving it and diving in further to learn and develop my skill set there. But I started on digital and I'll continue to shoot digital. It's definitely a necessity to have like a really strong digital camera background. But I think the more you can learn about film or the old masters, the way they did it, I think that it just helps you become a better photographer, and it helps teach you how to slow down and really think about what you're shooting, why you're shooting it, and how it's going to come out. And a lot of times you get in the habit of letting the camera do the thinking. Film makes you do the thinking. And so that part and that aspect I deeply appreciate.
I couldn't agree more. I think film, especially in the digital age where we're living in an era of like immediate satisfaction, film forces you to slow down because you don't know if the photo is going to turn out so dark and grainy or perfect until you send it off to the lab and get it 5 days later. Yeah. And you only have 36 exposures. And so like you have to make every one count. And if you're like buying all this film and paying to get it developed, it's not like, okay, you buy like a digital camera, you could take thousands of photos and then like only keep the best. And like there's really no limit. So I think film, it helps you slow down and makes you a better photographer.
I was going to say like double whammy. If you're shooting 120 millimeter, you don't even have 36 exposures. You get 15 exposures.
Oh, wow.
So I remember like my brother, shout out my brother, Jeremy, he gifted me my Bronica for Christmas last year. Yeah. Well, I guess technically a year and a half ago. But anyway, long story short, he gifted me the Bronica, and like I let it sit for like the first 4 or 5 months. I was just like, I don't know how to use this thing. And like I was shooting so much digital stuff that I didn't even think I needed to get into it. But I knew when I was preparing to have the art show that like the work I wanted to show like needed to be on 120. I wanted like the bigger frame, a little bit more depth, and I wanted the natural look and feel of the film. And so I was like, all right, let me figure this out. My brother is really great at medium format. He shoots a Mamiya. He goes crazy on film. So I'm like looking up to him. I'm like, oh, I need to get like little bro. So I start getting into my bag, figuring it out. Oh, I'm confident. I'm like, first 2 rolls, trash. A lot of them were underexposed. One of them, I think I loaded the film wrong. Like just a lot of like green mistakes, but it made me want to get better. So that forced me to become a student again. So I started going back to workshops and classes and reading books and getting back into that habit of like learning. And I think that for so long, because I'd mastered what I needed to on digital up until that point, I was like, oh, you're kind of on that autopilot mode. The film humbled me a lot. And I'm like, oh, there's levels and I need to like get my level up. So getting back into that mode of like being a student is something that film pushed me back into, and I'm grateful for it. And so that's why I'm like, even now, I'm like, I'm hungry to like continue learning more about it and starting to learn how to develop my own film and just like diving more into that world. And so, yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, film has really given me a new eye and appreciation for photography.
Yeah.
It's something that I got into after I got laid off and was like, so like, oh, I'm so depressed. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And then John gifted me a film camera. We were just like walking around and this guy was selling it at a market, and I started randomly getting into it. And yeah, it's everything you said is like so true. I love it.
That's so funny. It's like we have a similar origin story for film. It's like someone just gifted us a film camera.
And we're like, let's go.
Let's go. So yeah, if you're hearing this now, like there's someone in your life that is trying to find a new passion or, a new hobby or just something fun to do, gift them a film camera. Let them go for it.
It's a great gift. Yes, absolutely. Who is your dream person to photograph?
Ooh, dream person to photograph.
Yeah, if you could photograph anyone in the world.
Waves, that's a deep question because I've never even thought about that. I think more so than a particular person, it's actually like places, I think, for me that I would like want to go with my camera. I think that naturally there will be doors that'll open that will allow me to like shoot some of like my favorite artists that I maybe haven't got a chance to shoot. So I'm thinking of like, I've gotten a chance to like shoot some concert photography of Kendrick, but like being able to like be in the pit and like be close and like maybe behind the scenes, something like that. Like that would be really cool. So definitely some of like my favorite like artists, like musical artists. But I think most recently, like when I think about like dreams like with the camera, it's about like places. Like this summer I had like machinations of like maybe going up to like Nova Scotia in Canada and just like bringing my camera and just like seeing the type of really artful like landscape pictures I can get, right? Like that's the type of thing that I think about when it comes to like, I guess like bucket list things. It's like taking my camera like certain places. I think that people will naturally happen. Like I think that's something that where it's like I'm always going to be around people. So I don't think I've ever really thought of it like that, where it's like that like bucket list of like people to shoot. But I have started to like kind of like put destinations of places I want to be with my camera.
Oh, I love that. You know where I've been obsessed with recently going?
Where?
Is Namibia. Have you seen photos from Namibia?
No.
Okay, Google it after this interview.
Bet.
There's this beautiful, like it's super, it's like not touristy at all. And there's this beautiful, I'm gonna like mess up the name. I think it's called like Skeleton Coast or something. It's like, cause it's right north of South Africa. So it has this beautiful coastline and desert. And there's like kind of these like really cool abandoned buildings. And I was like stalking this one photo tour, but it was so expensive. It's like 10 days in Namibia. It's led by like an expert photographer who will lead you. But it's like $12,000. So it's like so out of pocket. But the photos that came out of it were so good.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I've like recently been like, I really want to go to Namibia. I just can't afford it.
See, but that's the thing.
One day we're putting it out there.
Yeah. It's on your list. You'll get there. But you see how I'm saying though? It's almost like places. It's like, oh, I would love to like go here like with my camera. And I think that's one thing for me. It's like when I moved back to New York, it's kind of like I set a rule for myself where it's like, don't ever leave the house without a camera. And so usually for me, I have like my little point and shoot. I carry like my my Kodak Ektar H35. It's a half frame film camera. is usually always in my bag when I go out. That plus a combination of maybe one or two other cameras, but usually that one's always on me. And it just from there is like you never know where you'll be. And so yeah, just wanting to go many places, capture many different beautiful scenes, and some of them I'll keep for myself, and then some of them too would love to share with people. You know.
I love that. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
Um. Yes. Yes. I'm thinking in my head like it's one of those things where it's like it's such a I don't know, like not a taboo thing, but it's just like I guess not something that you ever want to admit, but like I think we all have for
Yeah.
sure. I think if you haven't, kudos to you, but I've definitely um felt imposter syndrome before. But I think it's one of those things where it wasn't something that ever stopped me though. It's just something that I've like noticed that I felt and like wanted to work to overcome. I think that's like actually kind of in my life been a big theme in my life is like being in spaces where you may not be the smartest or you may not be the most athletic or you may not be the most talented, but like finding a way to prove it to myself that I belong in that space and that I can thrive and excel in that space. I think I've had to do that so often in my life. And it's something that has, I think, prepared me and also kind of propelled me forward. And I think that if you're not experiencing it in a way, then maybe like what you're gunning for, like may not be like that big. You know, if you're in if all the spaces that you're in, you feel like you're dominating that space, or you feel like you're like the top in that space, then it's like you got to find a new arena. You know,
Yeah, I
so
just saw something on Instagram. I forgot. Oh, I wish I could like give this person credit. So
yeah.
shout out to whoever this is. But it was something like, I'm also going to misquote it. It was like something like imposter syndrome is you catching up to your potential or something like that.
Hmm.
And it kind of goes in line with what you're saying of like, oh, if you're not experiencing it, maybe you're in the wrong room, like you're not pushing yourself,
Yeah,
you know? So that's wonderful.
for
That's a good
sure.
way to think about it.
I appreciate that. I was also just thinking too. It's like sometimes though, like it can be manufactured by circumstances that are not in your control for sure. Majority of the time it is, but here's what I mean, right? Like I'm thinking of like in a standpoint of like corporate, right? That I think is a different type of imposter syndrome that I may have felt compared to, you know, trying to make it as a photographer or visual artist, right? I think that literally funny enough, we were in this workshop at my job, and it was like kind of like a big meeting with like a lot of people from different offices, and it was like maybe like a little bit over like 100 people in the room, and there was a woman at the front doing like one of those like workshop things, and she literally was like, hey, like, you know, I know some of you all out there may be feeling, you know, imposter syndrome or, you know, elements of tokenism, blah 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 blah, but you know, this is how you da da da. And I kind of looked around the room and I was like, who? And I was like, I wanted to raise my hand so bad and be like, well, like, what if you actually like are legitimately the only black person in the room? But I was like, let me not stir the pot. But that is one of those spaces where you look around and you're legitimately the only black person, but there's a person who doesn't look like you at the front of the room putting on a, I don't know, like a career development thing, workshop, talking about how you shouldn't feel imposter syndrome or tokenism in a space like where we work at. But I'm looking around and I'm like, I'm not calling myself a token or an imposter, but I legitimately am the only black person in this room. So I think that that type of imposter syndrome in the corporate environment and things like that in the workplace can be a little bit different, especially than comparing that to like imposter syndrome in the creative world, right? I feel like for me coming to New York, I felt like an imposter. I felt like leaving Atlanta, it's like I met so many other dope photographers who like really love my work and who I built connections with and community with. And it was like, okay, cool. Like I belong here. Like I can, you know, I'm good enough to put my work out there and it's being received well. When I got to New York, I was like, oh, it's New York. Like I gotta go hard. I need to get better. But then I think I realized where it's like just being myself is enough. And I think that that's the other cool thing about the creative world. It's like, if you do feel like an imposter, just talk to somebody. The other person probably feels the same way too. And we're all on this journey together. So I think that's one of the coolest things about creativity is that like you may feel like that level of imposter syndrome, but in most of the places where you'll flourish, that won't be a factor because the people that are around you will make sure that you know you're not an imposter.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. I love that because I think we all feel it and have all experienced it on one level or another.
Yeah.
But yeah, what you said was, yeah, so true. Speaking of your full-time job, so yeah, you work, you have a full-time 9 to 5, but you do photography on the side.
Yes.
And I'll say this from the outside looking in. We'll see if this is true, but you do such a good job of balancing what is becoming basically, it seems like photography is becoming like just as fruitful for you as your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And you do such a good job balancing it because I know it's so hard sometimes to make time for creative pursuits if you are busy working full time. So I was curious, it's such a cliche question of like, how do you balance it all? But like, how do you do it? Because it's so hard, but you do such a good job at it. And also, do you have any advice for people who are struggling with this? Because I think this is a very common thing to be struggling with.
That's a great question, and one that I'm still working on it, honestly. I know that like the results are there for sure, and it looks like I've got it, together and figured out the balance, but I think I'm still figuring out the perfect way to balance it. But I would say like some of the things that I do to try to like make sure that I'm balancing the time is really making sure that I make time for myself, right? And I know that there's like, everyone says that, and it's like we're all trying to do that. But the way that I do it is like I think through like fitness and wellness and just making sure that like I have enough in the tank to make it to the end of the week, right? You get up early, you're commuting or you work from home or whatever you're doing, like to feed yourself. And then it's like, what do you have left to give back to yourself and to your creative energy? It's like some days I don't got it, right? And I feel like keeping enough in the tank and enough in the battery pack to put quality creative energy out. Some days I don't got it. And it's like I've learned it's like, okay, well, you might need to do something that doesn't require that much creative lift, right? Can you go through old work? Can you, look at inspirational things, right? But then that day where you do have, the energy to go for it, you grind it, right? And then some days you have no choice. You might have a deliverable or a deadline the same way where you're 9 to 5, where it's like, hey, this project's due EOD this day. You got to get it done. So I feel like in the creative world, for me, balancing those projects where it's like there is a target date for the deliverable or whatever project you're working on, but also, like I said, for like the show, right? It took me months to do that, but I was able to kind of plot out, okay, cool. Like I know like my weekends are free, so I'll set this shoot up here and I'll do this shoot there. So I think calendars, I think making time for myself through like, going to the gym and like working out and like trying my best to eat right. And also too, really just making sure like you keep the main thing. So like I know for sure it's like I'm blessed to have my job. It's a great job. And then also has opened doors for me creatively. So I know I can't lack on this because not only is it feeding me and keeping clothes on my back, but it's also opening doors for me as a creative. So I think my best piece of advice, I know that was a little long-winded, is finding ways to provide a synergy for yourself. If you're doing something every day that completely drains all of the creative energy out of you, you're not going to have enough to feed into your passion. For me, I'm able to get a little bit creative at work. It is, marketing leaning. So I get a chance to, stretch those and flex those creative muscles. So that way, when I'm jumping back home and I'm doing my own thing, it's like, okay, cool. Like I have a little bit left in the tank. So I think that finding a career that has allowed me to, one, I guess, living here in New York and live in a creative space, but also that's opened the doors for me for more creative opportunities, and where day to day I get a chance to do a little bit of creative thinking and creative work, has allowed me to find that balance. There's balance and synergy in what I'm doing every day. So I think that's probably like my biggest piece of advice. Find a space that if you're going to be giving it your energy every single day, yes, it's going to be providing a life for you, but also too, it's not completely draining all the creative energy out of you.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you want your work to evolve over the next couple years?
Ooh, that's a good one. The evolution of me and my work. I definitely see more critical thought put into it. I think I've started to do that. And I think that that's been the impetus of me getting into the fine art world and defining my work that way and showing my work that way. So I think that further critical thought of myself, of my community, of my environment of our country, of, everything, really starting to think critically and think deeply about what's going on and what do I have to say about it and what impactful things do I have to say about it. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing in terms of like evolution of my work, I would say just continuing to get confident, putting it in more places and putting it out there. I think like in person is such a different thing than the internet. I think that one thing I've started to do now is like mention my work to people. So that's a big thing for me. It's like, hey, like, introducing myself as what I am. Hey, I'm a photographer. I shoot film. I shoot digital. I just had my first show this year. Would love to show you some of my work. Putting myself out there. So I think that's an evolution of me, but also my work is like the spaces that I'm putting it in or trying to get it put in. So I think, thinking more critically, finding more places and spaces where my work could live, and could be impactful for people. And I think if there's another way for it to evolve, I think it's just a taste. It's a taste. I think quality at this point is good. There's always room for growth in terms of quality, but I think where I like to spend the most time and where I think will bear the most fruit is just a taste, right? And that's taste in stylistic choices. That's taste in decisions that you don't make about your work. So I think that continuing to refine that aspect of my work will allow it to continue to evolve. So those are the three things. Like what I'm critically thinking about, what I want to say and how I want to say it, finding and building the confidence to get my work into more spaces so that it can be seen, it can be talked about, it can be evaluated. And then the third thing, wait, what did I just say?
Taste.
Yes, my bad. The biggest thing is the taste of it all. Just continuing to develop my personal taste when it comes to like my vision, my personal style, the style of my visual art, all of it.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for beginner photographers on how to develop their taste or their eye? Because I think that there are objective measures you can use, like, rule of thirds or golden ratio or things like that. But so much of it is subjective and very individualistic. And I think when people are first starting out, it's hard to know how to develop that. Mm-hmm. So how did you develop yours? And do you have any advice for beginner photographers who are starting to develop theirs?
Yes, that's great. I definitely think like if you're a beginner or you're just kind of starting out, definitely starting with like the fundamentals or like the rudimentary stuff, like rule of thirds, like golden ratio, like all those like kind of like general art things I think like are great to learn. Some of them I didn't even learn until recently. Like John is the one who taught me about the golden ratio. He was like, oh, that's got the golden ratio. I'm like, what is that? He's like, you don't know that? I'm like, no, but he's our guy, right? So, but that was something that like I probably could have learned 5-6 years ago. And it's something that like subconsciously it's in a lot of my work. I just didn't know that that's what I was doing. So I think as a beginner, you're going to get into so many things where it's just like, you'll create cool stuff, but you don't know like the technical aspect behind it. So I think it's kind of like building up that initial glossary of like terminology and like visual, like, I guess like rules. I think that's definitely like a good like thing to like to set your foundation on. But I think for me, I would recommend just talk to other artists. That to me has been like one of the biggest things that I feel like has helped me to evolve more recently. But it's something that I realized like at the beginning, like when you're just with your friends, like, and you're all like trying to get better at photography, or if your friend's an actor and you have the camera, or a model, you have the camera, it's like you're all pushing each other. Talking to other creatives and seeing what they think and getting insight from them will help you kind of develop your own personal taste, because you'll kind of realize, well, it's like, okay, cool. Like my work looks like my work. I think that's one of the coolest things. Going to other shows recently and seeing other people's work, it's like, I love that their work is so defined and distinctive to them, but I also love that I can start to see in my own work that it looks like nothing else. I think that's the coolest thing. So I think like starting off, you may find that because you're following certain rules and certain fundamentals that your work may look similar or, the same as a lot of other works. But that's the same as like, I think with anything, right? Even in sports or life in general, right? Or school, like you start off learning the same basics, but then you might specialize in this thing, or, you might add this move to your game. Like you're going to do things that are going to naturally become you. But at the beginning, you got to learn the fundamentals.
Yeah. You got to learn the rules so you can break them.
Yeah, that's exactly, yeah. That okay. Forget everything I just said. That's the simplest way to put it. You have to learn the rules so you can break them. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Jesse, are you ready to move into the lightning round?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What is something new that you've tried lately? It could be anything. It doesn't have to be related to anything we've talked about.
Ooh, matcha.
Matcha. Okay, how'd
Yeah.
you like it?
It's good.
Really?
It's good.
This is controversial, but I don't like matcha. I know it's very hot or like hot isn't popular and like cool, but I it's just not for me. But
No,
I'm glad you like it.
The thing is though, there are some I've had that were like kind of powdery. I didn't really like it.
Yeah, it's powdery and it tastes like grass. That's how I feel.
That's so funny. I've tasted some where I'm just like, I don't know, but I've had like a couple recently good ones. I'm like, oh, I could get with that. So I think that's like one thing that I've tried recently that I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Do you have like a favorite matcha place that you go to?
Not yet, but they're starting to pop up everywhere. So I'm sure I'll find one like recently too. But also too, even though I've tried it and I liked it, it's not my go-to. I'm still a coffee guy. Like I'm going to go get a coffee first. But if I'm social matcha drinker, if I'm around people that are like, hey, we're going for a matcha or like it's a matcha order, I won't be like, I'll be like, yeah, give me one. So I think right now I'm more social leaning with it. I'm definitely a coffee a day guy though.
Gotcha. Do you have a lesson or a message that you want to share with listeners?
Always believe in yourself for sure. But one thing I think that I share with people that I don't know if everybody's heard this, but like I have this like kind of like belief or like this like ism. It's like a lot of people will say like, oh, like I'm having a bad day. And it's like, okay. It's like, are you though? Like, and here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that like you can't have a bad day or like a terrible day. Like sometimes today was some shit. Like, excuse my language, but like you might just have a bad day. Those things happen. But I think a lot of times like we let the small things get to us, not realizing how small we really are. It's like, why would you think in a world where there's billions of people, right? All moving at their own for themselves, right? We're self-providing creatures. We're all trying to do our own thing. There's so many forces moving in different spaces, right? Why would everything go your way? If billions of people every day wake up wanting things to go their way, what makes you think that everything is going to go your way? There's so many external factors that we can't control, right? Think just about everything going around you, all the energy around you. It's like, manage what you can control, but also too, it's like, oh man, like I dropped my phone today, or like, the small things like, oh, I got rained on a little bit. It's like, sometimes I see like some people that's like, oh, like I've had such a bad day or my day is ruined. And it's like, yo, like if you can account for like 3 things to go wrong in your day and just kind of like charge it to the game, I think that helps you out a lot just in terms of like moving through life, because a lot of the small things as my dad would say, like you got to let that roll off your back. And I think that helps you just kind of like see the bigger picture and also see where it's like, okay, cool. Like today I'm going to control what I can control, my attitude, how I'm showing up for myself and for the people around me. And I think that if you can do those type of things, it'll just make your life a lot better. And I think that a lot of times, like for myself, it's like most of the time people ask me how's your day? It's like, I can be honest, like my day is cool, right? Like, yeah, one or 2 or even 3 quote unquote bad things may have happened, but that didn't define my day. I still got up. I'm blessed to be here. I was able to go to work. I was able to maybe create something today. I had some food, right? Like I'm good. My people are still here. So I think that just kind of keeping things in perspective and just kind of accounting for the chaos and the things that can go wrong will help you to understand that in this incredibly vast world and space that we all share and occupy, where people are going a mile a minute in their own agenda, that and within yours, you can have a great day. That's probably like my biggest thing. I tell people that all the time. They'd be like, oh, I didn't even think about it that way. You're right. Like, that's just one small thing. Like, I'm tripping. So I think that's something I always try to share. It's like, account for those like 2 to 3 things in your day that may just happen to go awry or be a misstep. I left my ID at work. Okay, you're fine, bro. Get the visitor pass, go in there, get it tomorrow, right? Like those type of things that could psych you out. You're gonna miss something in your day. It's like you were so distracted by this small thing. It's like you missed the opportunity, or you saw something that could have inspired you, right? Like you missed the frame, like anything. So I think just kind of like framing your perspective and framing your attitude and making sure that you're understanding that as big as we are, as we think we are, we're really small.
Yeah, I love that. What is one thing you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Just in like creative world?
Yeah. You can interpret the question however you'd like.
I would say that you'll get there. You'll get there. I think for a while for myself personally, there's like this like driving force of like, with my parents, like them going through their own health things and like me moving away, I'm just like, oh, I gotta get it. I gotta like do things faster. I need to like make sure that I get successful faster, that I like accomplish this faster, right? So that they can see me, shine, so they can see me like pay them back for everything that they've done for me to get where I am this far now. So I think for a while it's kind of like running with that as like my like motivating energy. It's like I gotta go faster, I gotta get it done. So like I don't want them to miss anything. And I think as our folks get older, there's just like, oh, like they may not be here. They're not going to be here forever. So it's like that reality starts to set in. And for me, it was like I wanted to make sure that like I get there wherever there is, so that like they can celebrate it with me, and that I can show them that, hey, like you did it. Like all the sacrifices you made, like here it is. So I think for me, when I had the art show, that was like a huge moment for me, because like it kind of felt like whatever it is I was like supposed to be here to do, I felt like that night, like I did it. And I'm not saying that like, oh, life is done, life is good, but I'm just saying like that felt like such a big, like, whoo, like I did it. I don't know what it is, but like I did it. So it's like, and afterwards I just realized like, dang, dude, like you had this mindset, like you'll get there. And I have even more goals and even more aspirations and even more things I want to show them and prove to them that I can do, and that their sacrifices weren't for nothing. But I think that I've been able to now change my mindset a little bit more, and like in all things in life, whether it's like education or career or creativity or love or whatever it is, like you'll get there.
I love that. All right, Jesse, this has been amazing. Where can people find you and check out your work and support you? And oh my gosh, I didn't even ask about your new show coming up. I'm so sorry. So plug that too.
Yes. So I have an opportunity for a second show. I'm going to be a part of a larger showcase. It's going to be in Atlanta. The opening reception is going to be on July 12th. I'll definitely like post about it like on my socials and share the specific information when it comes out. But yeah, that date is going to be, I think it's a Saturday. Yeah, Saturday, July 12th. It's going to be in Atlanta. I'll drop all the key information. So if you follow me at Jesse Kearse IV on Insta, www.jessekearsiv.com is my website. You can find me there. That's where I keep my digital archive. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, you'll have to come back for part 2 and we can talk about the Atlanta show, because I'm
I would
sure it's
love
going to
that.
be amazing. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. You can follow the show on Instagram at version1 podcast and subscribe to our Substack, version1podcast.substack.com. You can also find me on buymeacoffee.com/Waverly Colville. Please leave us a review on whatever app you're listening to this on, and new episodes every Tuesday, and I'll see you next week.
Shout out Version 1. Shout out Waverly. Thank you for having me. This has been incredible. I can't wait for the next one.
Yay.